In times of stress, especially when the world is fighting a pandemic, only knowledge can act as a light and beacon of hope to guide us in the right direction. Hi, everybody. Dare to Compete presents Winning Mantras, an endeavor to ignite the spirit of competitiveness. In this episode of Winning Mantras, we have Amandeep and Ajitesh Dani, the winners of Airtel iCreate 2019. Hi, team. First of all, thank you for joining us. How are you all doing and how are you spending time in quarantine?
Thanks a lot for having us. So basically, we are doing some side projects and upskilling before joining our prospective jobs that we will be in the future. And yeah, over to Ditesh.
Yeah, the same thing. Currently, I'm working on a temporary project for a product consultant. And side by side, I've been upskilling myself in the same skill that I'll be using in my upcoming job, same as Amandeep. Yeah.
All right, great. All the best for your future endeavors, guys.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Moving on to the next question, the very important question of this session. What was Airtel iCreate 2019 about and how was the entire competition structured?
Okay, so the competition had two segments. In one of the segments, the business cases were from all the verticals like marketing, HR, supply chain management. And the other segment was totally relied on product management. And both of these segments had cases which Airtel is currently facing in their scenario. So these are pretty relevant to us. And the both of the segments have 12 predefined B schools that will be joining in the same in other of the segments. And other than those 12, we had 3 wildcard entries for the product and 2 wildcard entries for the non-product challenge. So in the product challenge, our college, IIM Kashipur, was one of the wildcard entries. And yeah, we had joined for the product challenge in the finalists.
Okay, perfect. And tell us something about the case that was given to you. What was the case and how did you go about solving it?
Okay, so the case was about a fictitious company called Alphatel, and it had started its operations, its telecom operations in the year 1995, and in year 2003, it had started its broadband operations. And as of currently, it has been expanding into its FTTH, which is the fiber to the home segment, high-speed broadband segment, and it has been into implementation on its own. So the case was about generating a plan for the next 10 years as in how should Alphatel go about it, whether it should continue its implementation on its own, whether it should it should have its local partners with them like the LCOs and the MSOs, which are the local cable operators and the multi-service operators, and or it could be an hybrid, as in a combination of both a partnership and implementation on its own. So we also had to identify the opportunities and quantify them as well that Alphatel would be having for the next 5 years. And additionally, we had to identify the main markets of the cities in which Alphatel should begin its implementation. And yes, apart from this, we have been given a small introduction to the value chain of the service, broadband service, and the equipments that were being used. And also, we were given a hyperlocal cost snippet that goes into the implementation. And yes, so the cost snippet was one of the most key exhibit that we had used in the financials of this case.
Okay. And how did you jump into the case? What was your initial strategy and how did the entire case solution go about?
Yeah, so thank you, Ajitesh, for explaining the actual proposed solution that we gave in the finals. Now, talking about the approach that we followed while coming up with the solution, we started off by having an analysis of the whole value chain so that we could understand the different business interventions for the different stakeholders of the value chain. Now, after that, we tried to find out what our competitors are doing in the market, because to define our USP of the product or service, we had to understand the current offerings, products, or services by our different competitors. Now, after that, we set different research objectives for our primary and secondary research, because we had to get some relevant insights out of it. Now, after getting research data by having interactions with different stakeholders like area sales managers, product managers, and on-ground executives, we need to use frameworks to create relevant insights out of it. Now, after getting the relevant insights, we used design thinking and SWOT analysis for different competitors' products for building a new business model, because we had to bring the innovation point into our business model, as we had to make it sustainable and scalable going into the future. Now, after that, what good is a business model if it's not feasible for execution? So we used break-even analysis for, uh, to prove its feasibility, and so we didn't use any financial ratios or any complex methodology. We just followed a simple break-even analysis so that we could prove that we have gained our profit going into the future at this quarter at this specific time.
Moving on, you guys must have faced some roadblocks while working on your case study solution. How did you cross these obstacles, and what all measures did you take to ensure that no such obstacle comes in the future?
So so talking about the different problems that we faced while coming up with a solution, as I told you earlier, the case was launched just before the Diwali vacations, and to come up with a rigorous research, it was a difficulty because we both were in different cities. So that was a big challenge, but as we tried to find out a different approach, so we tried to have a personal interview with different stakeholders, as I told you like before, different area sales managers, product managers, and different on-ground executives. So this was one problem. Now, talking about the second point, so going forward, when it comes to having different scalable and sustainable solution, we need to have the viewpoint of different stakeholders, because the pain points that we can propose solutions to, it should have the different elements that can justify their needs. So we had to gain different insights out of that rigorous research. And when we talked to the jury in the finals, so one of our strongest part was our rigorous research that we did in the whole journey that we were having in the whole solution part.
Even after numerous brainstorming sessions, there are a few points that you miss, and there are a few surprising elements that you come across when you see others' presentations. Were there some such surprising elements in other presentations that you saw on the final day?
Yeah, so we had seen about 15 presentations that day, including ours. So almost all the solutions were from the strategic point of view. Everyone had presented a strategy or vision that should be implementable for the next 5 to 10 years. But there was one particular team who had delved deeply into the implementation of the operations part of it. And I believe that is a very vital input to the business model, because no business model is successful without a successful implementation, right? So that's was one thing that, including us and many others too, had missed out on their business model. And yes, and that I guess would have been a better part if we would have implemented in a solution too.
All right. Okay, great. Tell us something about the presentation that you created. What were the key aspects of your presentation? And from the beginning, from the first slide to the last slide, how did you maintain the flow of the entire presentation?
Yeah, so talking about the different presentation, the different slides presentation that we were asked to present in all of the 3 rounds, it varied from a 4-slide to a 6-slide. Like in the first round, we were supposed to propose a 5-slider solution, and for the final, the national round, we had to propose a 4-slider and a 6-slider. Now, the most parts of the presentation were same throughout, but so when we had to extend the solution from a 4-slider to a 6-slider or 5-slider, we just had to focus on the most important part of the solution, which was the business model and the feasibility analysis, that is the financial. Now, talking about the business model, let me just give you a small idea, like a small brief. What was our business model? So, when we talk about the market, it is a pretty dynamic one, because so we divided the whole market into three parts: a rural segment, the suburban, and the urban. So we propose a dynamic business model, and so when we break down into 6 sliders, we use 2 of the sliders to explain explain the dynamic business model in whole detail. So that required a lot of focus in that in the 6 slider as well. Now, when we talk about the last one, which was the top 6, we focus a lot on the feasibility part, because the judges expected us to propose a solution that they could implement in the upcoming 1 or 2 years. So yeah, financial part was also the important aspect that we focused on when we had to extend our solution from a 4 slider to 6 sliders.
Now let's talk about the jury. When you presented your entire solution in front of the jury, what do you think were they expecting from the candidates? What were they expecting from the ones who were presenting, from you guys? And what were the questions that they emphasized on and focused on?
So the jury consisted of the senior product team of both Airtel as well as Wink, and the questions revolved mostly around justification of the business model, and both financially and strategically, and also the challenges that one might face while implementing the business model that they had presented. So as Aman had mentioned too, we had to present a business model that was both scalable and sustainable. So the questions mostly revolved around this aspect. So the first question was, how would we convince the local partners, that were the MSOs and the LCOs, to partner with us? Like, that's a pretty relevant question, considering they would be having their own business, and why would they ever want to partner with a big giant, right? The next question was about how would we justify that our business model is scalable and sustainable? That we had done through a break-even analysis and the financial aspects that Aman had explained. And the lastly was we had to justify on what parameters we had considered what market or the cities would be selected by us to launch our broadband plan. So we had mentioned that the size of the market, the equipments that are already laid out in the market, the per capita income of the market, and etc. These were the parameters that we had selected. And yeah, so mostly the questions were only about justifying the model that we had proposed.
Okay. Did any unexpected incident occur on the day of the final presentation, or did everything go smoothly?
So one funny thing incident had happened, like we had tried very intently to justify our business model. So the content that was presented on the slides was too much. So one of the jury members had jokingly made a statement that if you want to replace slides as well for your presentation, then you could have more slide content on a slide as well. So that was we felt that we could have avoided that by putting a little less content. But yeah, all the content that we had put was pretty relevant. So yeah, so that was important for us.
So do you think that you would want to advise this to the incoming batch, that they should be putting less content on their presentation slides so that it is more visible to the jury?
The main point is that the slides should not replace you. So the content can vary, but whatever has been put, that should be covered by you. And I guess we missed that part. So yeah, so there's one advice to all the aspirants for the corporate competition.
So I would like to add one point here. So like Ajitesh mentioned, we missed a trick here. Now, we didn't use any animations to replace the whole presentation along with the flow that we went through. So I would suggest the junior batches that are coming in the future use animations to so that the jury can see what is the flow of the presentation, and so that they do not get like a worry about all of the content that they will be missing, because either they could just look at your content in the slide, or they can hear you at the same point. So yeah, I would suggest that you don't need to put the whole content at one place. You can just use pointers justify your flow along with your pitch.
Okay, perfect, perfect. I think that's a great insight that you guys have shared. Uh, let's talk about the importance of B-School competitions. Now we know that every year numerous B-School competitions are conducted. Why do you think these corporate competitions are important in an MBA student's life, and how do they shape his or her life?
So basically, when we talk about the MBA journey from in these 2 years, so either you gain your theoretical knowledge from your professors, your peers, and the experience that you gain in the campus. Now, one missing bit is here. You do not get that much exposure to solve real life issues that the different corporates are facing. Here comes the part where the corporate competitions helps you a lot. You will get a lot of exposure, like how to come up with innovative solutions that could help solving the different real life solutions, the real life problems faced by the different corporations like Airtel. So yeah, this is one aspect that corporate competitions helps you a lot. Now, one of the other aspects that corporate competitions helps is the PPO. So if you perform really well, and so yeah, the companies provide you the replacement offers on the basis of your performance and your solution proposed in the finals as well. So yeah, this is one of the most important part because that way you get to focus on your academics much easier because you have a replacement offer if you want to have a job in the future after your MBA rather than having a entrepreneurial journey in the future. So yeah, these were the two main aspects that help by the corporate competitions in the if you want to have a holistic learning in your MBA in this whole 2 years.
Yeah, one point I guess someone missed that these competitions one of the best ways where you can judge, apply, whatever learnings you have. Like who are be seeing your solutions, right? They have been working in this industry for the past 2 to 3 decades at least. So they are the best ones who will be judging your solution. And if they find any fault, there is to be fault, and there is some practical knowledge or additions needed to it. So yeah, so these competitions are the best ways where you can judge your learnings, which any classroom teachings cannot provide you, or rather we ignore it most of the times.
So every year, throughout the year, we have numerous B-School competitions organized, especially that of case study and especially case study competitions. Why do you think Airtel iCreate was different, and what is that special element of Airtel iCreate that is missing in all other case study competitions?
Each and every corporate competitions, they focus majorly on a specific domain for solving for giving you a real life problem that you can solve. But when it comes to Airtel iCreate, it gives you the domain of your choice because like Ajitesh earlier mentioned, the case study is divided into two parts. First part of the competition is focusing on all the domains like marketing, finance, operations, supply chain, analytics, etc. Now, the other part is focusing on the product management part. So, if you are a student, an MBA student, and you have a preference in terms of your domain, your expertise, then you can just select your respective case, and you can propose solutions for it. Then it gives you the flexibility, the much needed flexibility in terms of your expertise and your domain, so that you can be comfortable and propose a solution to the respective case as well.
And is this what makes Airtel iCreate different?
So basically, this was the first edition of product management case study competition by Airtel iCreate, and as we are currently looking in the market, product management is currently the third most wanted job role, yeah, in the industry. Now, for a giant corporation like Airtel to recognize such a demand in the market, it gives a lot. It takes a lot of guts to accept these things, and it just shows you the approach that a corporation can have for preparing themselves for the future business as well. Now, hence we started a specific product management focused competition this year. so that they could gain the talent, and if there is some problems that is being faced by the telecom sector or in the value added services in industry, then they could identify the different talent, and the solutions can be proposed by the selected talents by through the competition that was started this year.
Do you guys have any advice for the young ones who will be joining B School this year in regard to corporate competitions, and especially if they are willing to participate in Airtel iCreate?
So my suggestion for the upcoming batch of 2020-22 and the current batch would be to plan their experiences and learnings in respective semesters in a better way, because so as we all know, the season of corporate competition starts in the second semester of anyone's MBA, or the fifth semester for the final years. Now, if you plan your learnings in a better way, like if you have to gain any specific upskilling, or if you want to do any courses, respective courses, then you can do them in the first semester itself, so that you can give more time to the corporate competitions. And now talking about specifically about Airtel iCreate, I believe it gives you the opportunity to experience and try different things of your in the domain of your preference. So if you would like to work in any respective domain of your preference, then you can give preference to Airtel iCreate a bit more other than the other competitions, because in a single week more than 3 to 4 competitions are launched. So it gets really tough for a student to focus on all the competitions. So I would suggest to focus on one or two of your preference, so that you can gain the most desirable results out of it.
So it could be a pretty common misconception among students that corporate combinations are the things that only second years can ace at. But it's not true, because all the concepts that are required for acing these competitions are pretty much covered in first year itself. So the PGP1 students shouldn't feel that they're at a disadvantage because they are not exposed to the major electives that second years have. And other than that, I feel corporate competitions are a great way to connect with the corporates, the business leaders, and also they are a great networking platform, right? Because you get to meet other preschool students from other preschools, right? Who are presenting the solutions. So I request all of the PGP1 students and the current batch to channelize their energy in the right direction and pick 1 or 2 competitions, like Amandeep rightly said, and yes, aim at them rather than attempting all of them. Yeah, so that's it.
Okay. Thank you so much, Amandeep and Ajitesh. It was really nice talking to you. It was really great interacting with you both. And all the best for all your future endeavors. Stay safe and stay home. Thank you guys for connecting with us today. Thank you.